Welcome to Star Wars Timeline. Today's Friday, and it means we're doing another review of the Bad Batch show. We got Episode 8, Reunion. For those of you guys who didn't see my previous reviews, I'll drop the links in the video's description below so you could check out each and every episode, my thoughts and impressions of the show so far. Now, before we jump into the reviewing this episode, spoiler alert. I talk about characters, storyline, and stuff like this, so I strongly encourage you to go and see an episode before checking out this video. Once again, this is spoiler alert, so let's dive into it. As the episode suggests, pretty much no huge surprise here. We're back to the character which we have abandoned for a couple of episodes, Crosshair. He's back in action. We see that he's still very much under control of the Empire. The chip is in his brain. It has not been removed like with the rest of the crew, and he's hunting them down. He has been ordered to find and dispatch the rest of the group. And it looks like the Empire is not interested in preserving them. Yes, the cloners themselves, the Kaminoans, want to possess the girl and, if possible, salvage the crew as well because they're valuable assets. But as far as the military is concerned, they want to completely dispose of them. So I would say this was a pretty straightforward episode. We see Crosshair back to the planet Braca, where the show picks up from the previous episode. And what they're trying to do is get some kind of weaponry or equipment, stuff that they could salvage and sell in order to make it on their own. Just like I discussed in the previous episodes, it feels like the Hunter and the rest of the team are starting to assert themselves what to do next. You know, they can't rely on the Republic anymore. And what I found first interesting and world-building kind of like imagery is that continuation of the broken shipyard, you know, these destroyed Jedi carriers are there. And it kind of builds a link to the Force Awakens, Episode 7, where we see Rey, and she's a salvager as well. So it kind of, in this episode, it reinforces that idea that there's it's a profession in the Star Wars galaxy. Apparently, you know, you could go to some kind of wreckage, pick up the valuables, and sell them off. So that was kind of cool, and it harkens back to the Episode 7. It ties it all nicely together. Next, we see the continuation of the relationship between Omega and Wrecker. You know, he's in the previous episode, which was quite off-putting and scary, you know, he became this monster for a second because he couldn't control himself. But now they're back on track, and he's teaching her how to dismantle the bombs. There was quite a funny moment where Omega is not able to do it on time, and then the bomb goes off, but it's a smoke bomb. And Wrecker says, "What do you think I am? Some kind of monster? You know, I would never, you know, bring a child near a real live bomb." So it's pretty interesting. And, you know, the episode goes along. Obviously, we see the Empire land with Crosshair. You know, they assign the troops to certain duties. One of them goes off on the ship and tries to find the ship that the Bad Batch arrived on to take them over there. No big surprises there. The biggest thing I would say about this episode was, of course, the grand reveal. Cad Bane, one of the dopest villains and characters in the Clone Wars show, is also here. And to be frank with you guys, I personally was not surprised. I anticipated that because it felt like Dave Filoni's job was to take George Lucas's creation, who is still responsible for creating this Bad Batch group, and along with some story elements and motifs that we saw in the Clone Wars show, to carry that gently over into a new generation of shows and, you know, reintroduce this stuff to the new fans. And the evidence of that is what I talked about in the first episode. It even begins with the fanfare of the Clone Wars, and we see Wolf Yularen's synopsis catching us up to speed and telling us what was going on. I felt it was so nostalgic and lovely, and it truly transitions well. I mean, you could call this show Clone Wars 2.0 or something like that. So Cad Bane, the way that he's introduced, obviously we know that there are bounty hunters who are after the prized Omega. You know, she's a clone and something is very special about her. And we saw Fennec Shen in the previous episode. She was kind of cool. She jumped from the Mandalorian show, and we see her younger years here. She's one of the bounty hunters after the prize. But now we see Cad Bane, an entirely different animal. And guys, this was the most exciting part of me recording this video, was how he was introduced. For those of you who are Sergio Leone fans and, you know, the spaghetti westerns, those famous western films that Clint Eastwood was known for, this is what Cad Bane was. You know, down to his costume, if you look at it, it's quite intricate and detailed and very, very different from what we saw in Clone Wars show. He looks like a cowboy. It looks like a vest on him. And when he said, like, I'm taking this kid, whether you want to or not. And if you want to, you know, dead or alive, she's coming with me. And when they have that standoff and the camera goes through those fast, iconic cuts where they show the faces, they show the eyes, they show the gunslinger's arm on his weapon. Beautiful stuff. Even trumpets kind of like music assists in the background to reinforce that idea of the famous scene from The Good, the Bad, and Ugly. And guys, I was geeking out. As a movie buff in general, I was like, oh my God, this is perfect. This is fantastic. So I felt it was really beautiful. And of course, who wins that standoff? You best believe it, Cad Bane. They just, boom, one shot, and Hunter is down. Another cool thing that I found interesting about this episode was when the crew is trying to find, they're outnumbered and they're caught in a trap and they're trying to find a new path to escape. And as the bombs go off and all the Bad Batch, the team and Omega, they're dropped down, Crosshair is burnt by this reignited engine. And we see that he's quite scarred. And my first impulse, my first thought was, well, hold on a second. Is it going to affect his chip somehow? What if his chip inside of his brain gets damaged, but not entirely? And we see this interesting character arc where he's conflicted and he's battling his more violent impulses. And he said, well, this is not who I am. The Empire will not control me. And it's going to take him quite a journey to get to the point where the rest of the team are, because they honestly got it off easy. The moment they realize something is wrong, Rex is there along to help them, and, you know, they take care of business quickly, not Crosshair. And it makes me feel for the character a lot more, because he is unwilling participant in this war. Again, this is an overture to historical events, something like Nazi Germany. And not all soldiers, you know, boots on the ground, were willing or interested in all this stuff, but they were soldiers and they were following orders, not justifying it at all. I'm just saying this is what war feels like for a person with a gun in the front line. This is what the command said. This is what we're doing. And like, it kind of you have to diminish your humanity and say, well, this is what I have to do. And all of those elements are in the Crosshair. And I think he's just a beautiful, beautiful new character that Dave Filoni and the crew has created. And I really, really enjoyed how they put this mask over him. Something we've seen, this repeated element with Saw Gerrera in Rogue One. He has a breather mask, obviously hearkening back to Darth Vader's suit, that he cannot coexist without machinery. Again, a beautiful, beautiful story arc. And we see that in Crosshair, and it makes me wonder, wow, was he really that badly wounded? What's going to happen in the next episodes? Is he going to become more machine-like? Again, there's this interesting setup. Which way could he go? Is he going to go more machine-like and more Imperial? Or is he going to fight all of this stuff and eventually rejoin with the crew? I felt it was absolutely brilliant episode. I cannot score any episode in the show so far less than 8. I mean, they're all exciting, they're all interesting. And what I really appreciate about this episode, you know, we had a chase scene in the previous ones. We had a shootout, and we have some more shootouts here. But then they took a spin on the action and said, well, let's try something different. Let's try something else. And, you know, when you see all the Bad Batch crew, Wrecker and, you know, and Omega and Hunter, all of them are tumbling down, and, you know, this crazy roller coaster ride kind of like scene going on. I felt it was an interesting way to put a spin on action and do something interesting and different. All in all, fantastic episode. I cannot wait to see what happens next. And I'm really, really invested in Crosshair and his future. Anyway, guys, my name is Ben. I do Star Wars book and comic book reviews, character highlights, lore videos, and so forth. If you enjoyed this video, please consider supporting my channel. Follow, hit that bell button, and I will see you next time.